This is a Tallahassee update from the Florida Retail Federation.
Today is the end of the 7th week of session. It's the time of year when amendments fall out of the sky like rain, and we have to be ever vigilant to ensure that bad amendments don't get placed on good legislation. Some of our bills were subject to such amendments this week. On Tuesday, John Rogers worked with Senator David Simmons to have the wage theft bill heard in the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator Simmons provided a good amendment to the bill to allow for county courts to establish a procedure for hearing wage theft claims. In the end, the committee ran out of time prior to voting on the bill. We are working to have the bill withdrawn from its last committee and go to the Senate floor. The very next day, the House version of the bill, by our very good friend, Representative Tom Goodson, was passed out of its final House committee, the Judiciary Committee. In that meeting, John Rogers did an excellent job fighting off a bad amendment by Representative Richard Steinberg. The bill passed in good form on a party line vote, and we received word yesterday that the House bill will be heard on the floor during Tuesday's session. Another bill that is very important to the business community, the Workers' Compensation Drug Repackaging Bill, received hearings in both the House and the Senate this week. In the Senate, the bill, which is being sponsored by Senator Alan Hayes, was heard in the Senate Health Regulation Committee. The goal of the legislation is to bring equity to the cost of drug dispensing by requiring that doctors receive the same fee cap to which the pharmacies are subject. The State Office of Insurance Regulation has agreed to order a rate reduction in workers' comp premiums of 2.5% upon passage of this legislation. Unfortunately, a bad amendment was placed on the Senate bill, which is estimated to actually increase costs by as much as 1.4%. Yes, but anything that brings a rate increase to our members is very concerning. Right now, they're facing increases on unemployment compensation tax, on minimum wage, and now workers' compensation, and it's just too much at this point. We will continue to work with the Senate to remove that amendment and get the bill back in good form. In the House, Representative Matt Hudson is doing a spectacular job of guiding the bill through the committee process with only minor changes that have been vetted and found to still provide the necessary relief in workers' comp rates. This morning, the bill passed out of its final House committee and will now move to the House floor. And for our clothing and school supplies retailers, I'm very happy to let you know that the Senate version of the back-to-school sales tax holiday bill passed its second committee of reference this week. It now moves to the Budget Committee, where Randy Miller is hard at work to make sure it gets placed on agenda as soon as possible.
Correct, and it's also considered somewhat of an economic development tool because it gives the retail operators an opportunity to bring people in, and the theory is that when you go in, it's kind of like what I call the Costco theory. You go in for 2 things and you come out with 10 things, and that other things are purchased, so we do see an increase in the revenue in that period of time. So generally speaking, there's the theory that it actually brings money to the state instead of takes money away from the state.
And for our Beauty Industry Council members, House Bill 887 by Representative Ingram passed the Florida House Thursday afternoon. The sponsor and the Department of Business and Professional Regulation have been working closely with the Florida Retail Federation to ensure safe regulations on the industry. Language regarding the barbering statute and the makeup statute were deleted from the bill due to the industry's health and safety concerns. The language that was approved by BIC regarding licensure by endorsement and cosmetology services performed outside of a licensed salon in connection with a special event were both in the amended bill. It will now be sent to the Florida Senate in messages. We also wanted to share some great news from our work on behalf of utility ratepayers. On Wednesday of this week, the Public Service Commission voted on a settlement with Progress Energy Florida to refund customers $288 million that the company had billed customers for purchasing power while it completed repairs on the Crystal River nuclear plant. The Florida Retail Federation was one of the parties to this agreement on behalf of ratepayers, and we believe the settlement is the largest refund ever given by an electric utility in Florida. This historic settlement was the result of months of negotiations with Progress Energy and avoids increases that could have potentially been more than 5 times what was agreed to in the settlement. And that's our weekly update for Friday, February 24th. I'll be back next Friday with the latest news from Florida's capital.